As a kid, you ever have that one toy that you just wish would exist, but for some strange reason the powers that be keep it from happening? Then suddenly you sort of get what you wanted, but it's not how you would want it, and all it does is disappoint. Eventually you figure out why things are this way, and you're not happy about it because the simple notion of it prints money seems to be too obvious a solution. Suddenly you're a grown-up, and by some strange stroke of magic, luck, fate, or whatever supernatural power, you get the other thing you wanted with every fiber of your being as a child, but far after you clamored for it. The bucket list of wants grows smaller and smaller, and suddenly you're on the last ones to scratch out. So, because you're tired of waiting, you build yourself a Lego Infinity Gauntlet, snapping those fingers, hoping that the Lego gods don't eviscerate you on sight for circumventing their power, wishing for Mario minifigs, a transforming Lego Optimus Prime, Lego Legends of Zelda, and Lego Fortnite. Days go by. Weeks, months, and you wonder to yourself, what if this is your punishment for the crimes you've committed against the natural order? Could a simple snap of the fingers do so wrong? Suddenly, at the cusp of losing your grip on reality, a sign is delivered. One promising that all you did was not in vain, promises of someone given form in the way you always dreamed, yet never thought possible. Someone to light my darkest hour. Him. After nearly 20 years of waiting, that pipe dream Lego set would eventually come to be, standing in his 1,508-piece glory. Lego Optimus Prime. Sure, at $170 at the time of his writing, he might be on the higher side of sets out there, but that doesn't mean he's without anything to prove him worth the price. At about 14 inches tall, let me tell ya, he doesn't disappoint. He's got articulation at the shoulders, also at the elbows, in addition to the wrists as well as his fingers on both of his arms. The Autobot logos and arrows are printed here. This fancy ratchet joint keeps his arm in position, a part that's new for 2022. His fingers are melded together for ease of function's sake, but you can remove the plate on the ends to restore their individual movement if you'd like. Prime can look down and around quite well, but he struggles looking up without some help from the joint beneath. His head is captured perfectly here, with eyes and the tip of his head being prints. He's got very strong hip joints as well that remain within untrained human limits, should you choose not to remove any armor, of course. Optimus has no contracting knee joints, but they do rotate around, reminiscent of the original toy. There's no knees here because he's too top-heavy. He wouldn't be able to stand up with them. I'll take this moment to also acknowledge that on all promotional art, packaging, and even the instructions have you applying these stickers upside down. Rotating the element it's on will remedy that, making his legs look as they do in all official media. Also, note these exposed studs. I'll be bringing them back up again when they're harder to see. The only other joints are at the ankles of Optimus that roll inward with how widespread his legs are, but do have their limits, only mostly remedied by these rubber nubs at his heel. An issue with this set comes with the feet as well. When you handle the joint, it loosens up the 1x4 plate here due to the weight of the figure. It'll pop out of place quite frequently, and it's a bit of a nuisance. That's due to the fact he's perpetually leaning forward. These plates can't handle all of this weight, but it does give him a dynamic posture. Talking about functional elements falling off, his thumb can be positioned, but there's nothing keeping it in place than its own connection, so it falls off quite easily. Another issue with loose parts is the fact that there's so few comfortable places to carry him without a panel or piece popping out of place. This is especially challenging as the most comfortable seeming place is from his chest area, but due to the weight of his legs, these parts here loosen up, veritably splitting him in half. I recommend you lift him from the waist down. I suppose the true nature of this set is to be a display piece rather than something played with, so I digress, especially with that 18+ age suggestion. Despite that suggestion, this build isn't much of a challenge, so that certainly seems to imply the former. Being that he's primarily inspired by the original generation, or G1 version of Optimus Prime, his accessories follow suit, with the exception of his plaque. It's your typical collector's set plaque LEGO's been using for the past few years. It features Prime's name in Cybertronian and stats that you'd often find on the back of a Transformer Toys box or on a trading card within. This pink box is an Energon cube. Energon is used as food and currency on Cybertron and is conveniently formed into cubes. It's normally not transparent, but I suppose the idea was to emulate the fact it's a form of energy. I honestly would have preferred it be solid, but I can't complain. What I can complain about is Prime's Energon X. Yes, it's a different color than the cube. I don't make the rules on how these are named. I'm just curious where the inspiration came from, because I can think of so many better ways to do this accessory, and it's not like this, especially not with the Power Blast elements. Like the cube, the axe also opts for a transparent solid mix when, in my opinion, I would have preferred solid, as LEGO's transparent elements are not opaque enough. The Energon axe requires you to remove Prime's hand and lower this joint. In his arms are ports where the brown axle fits. As you can see, the non-orange elements are hidden within use, so their inclusion doesn't bother me. Another accessory that could have gone better, but at least accomplishes being what it's supposed to be, is the Matrix of Leadership. The central sphere is challenging to make perfect with the parts available, but it could have been all orange, preferably with a print on the front to emulate the core's appearance too, as the absence of its iconic blue here is a bit of a bummer. Now when it comes to the extremely faithful accessories, we have Sideswipe's jetpack. Emblazoned with a printed Autobot logo for creative licensing, this jetpack is an element to the set that, once built, doesn't feel like a part of a LEGO set, but more of an action figure accessory. It latches onto Optimus's back. What's fun is that this part of the set is primarily assembled using LEGO elements that match Sideswipe's color palette. A nice touch. The closest to the source material is Optimus' ion blaster. Separate from him, as the people of Cybertron were never built for war, this captures everything you'd remember of the original, the exception being the grip and trigger due to its rather realistic appearance. The cartridge is where he grips it from the set, or so to speak, as it can't attach to his hands. This is remedied by attaching it to the exposed studs on his arms. You want to remove any of the accessories for the main function of this build, however. This LEGO Optimus Prime can fully transform without removing any pieces off of him. A rare feat, especially for LEGO. First, you connect his legs together. For his hands, open the fingers, but roll back his thumb. Make sure the back of the hand is on the same side as the yellow arrow on his arm. Lift up the front grille and fan out the hinged parts here. Fully rotate his torso around and rotate his head back. Angle his entire upper body to his toes and set him on his wheels. You can flip his head back and flip up those panels on the arms. Notice how the arms are at an angle at the shoulder still? At this position, roll both arms back. Rotate the lower arms towards the grille. His hands should be pushed down as if they're gripping the wheel's axle. Lower the flaps on the side of the cabin, as well as his feet, and rotate the tanks. Bring the grille back around, fold the red hinges in but keep the gray ones out, and there you have Optimus Prime in his vehicle mode. There is a cosmetic feature here for accuracy's sake, where this extra bumper is included. Some might argue this goes against the idea of not needing to swap out parts to transform him, but as it's the same piece and entirely cosmetic, I'd fully disagree. He can roll very well as all 6 wheels rotate. You recall those exposed studs from earlier? Well, when you pull back the Ion Blaster's magazine, you can connect the butt of the blaster to those studs, so it can be carried around in vehicle mode. What's also cool is that the jetpack can rest back here as well. The instructions don't say that, but I thought I'd let you know. The sheer novelty of this set is more than enough to make me go crazy over the fact this even exists. For years we assumed that Hasbro and LEGO would never want to work together for being competitors, yet here we are. It's unmistakable who this character is, perfectly captured in LEGO, and not every pop culture icon can say that. The accessories are a mixed bag, as some of them are captured perfectly, while others make you ask, why? Despite them being quite functional. However, the delicate nature of this thing is rather unfortunate. There exist so many techniques to make these issues more manageable or near non-existent. I'm actually surprised the issue with the feet made it past quality control, let alone allowing the looseness of the torso to make it past quality control as well. For some, even the act of twisting it for the transformation makes it pop right off. This aside from any of the other smaller panels falling off while being handled. Thing is though, it does not affect the point of the set, it being displayed. Which is still going to be an issue, as there's no doubt many kids are gonna buy this set anyway with the intent to play with him. But for good reason though, he's a fully transforming LEGO Optimus Prime. Heck, if he was as fragile as a sandcastle, most people would probably buy him anyway because of that feature alone. That's the icing on the cake. That doesn't mean you should release it in that state, however. That's just abusing your user base and does not show well for LEGO. You consider their motto, only the best is good enough, which, whether it means they actually want their product to be literally perfect, or is simply a mantra for excellence, they're failing on both fronts here. Optimus isn't the only aspect of this, but after waiting for all this time, sticker issues, strained feet, loose torso and all, I'm relatively disappointed that this is the quality it showed up in. Yes, this set is wonderful in appearance and function. Yes, there are some serious flaws in accomplishing that. In an unbiased perspective, I'd unfortunately say that this set is a 7 out of 10, but I'm blinded by rose-tinted glasses. It's a fully transformable LEGO Optimus Prime. I personally don't care if it's flawed, as he will be displayed and only occasionally, and carefully, transformed once in a blue moon. This very well might be my favorite set of 2022, and ranks high on my favorite sets, period. I guess the next question is, can we have more? Which Transformer or large robot would you like to see LEGO make next? Let me know down in the comments. While you're down there, like this video so it gets recommended to other people you know. You can subscribe too since you're there. Hitting the bell as well sends you notifications when I post. Until then, roll out, and I'll see you next time. I want Megatron and Bumblebee and Starscream and Soundwave and Hot Rod, and if we're doing giant robots, the Granddaddy Gundam and the Iron Giant.